Hello, I'm Earl Weinberg, and this is Book Circle Presents The Cavalry Cycle. This time we're going to continue our reading of Cold Yule, Buckjack. Another blasted buckskin. Wonder if Dad would come out buckskin if he were turned. Wouldn't that put Mum in a state? Jeff laughed. You and Donna have already done that. I think she wanted grandchildren from you. You know, human ones. Or from you, John returned. Jeff nodded, then locked his knees and leaned back comfortably, looking at John. We don't look that much alike, he remarked while John got dressed again. I know, but I guess people see a buckskin centaur and just assume it's you. He nodded again. What are you doing out here? Or rather, I know what you're doing out here. When are you coming back home? As soon as I can think of how to do it without looking more of a coward. Or maybe as soon as I can work up the nerve. Jeff raised his eyebrows. I just spoke with Chloe. She said you ended an awkward situation like a perfect gentleman. I should have just walked on and continued shopping. Only if Chloe wanted to. Looked to me like she wanted to come home and fizz with Mum about Donna. He pulled a phone out of his pocket. They are a little worried about you. Soft beeping. Found him, out in the woods. Yes, fine. Stewing, of course. We'll be back in a bit. Click. But before we go back, said Jeff, meeting John's eyes, I want some explanation. He settled deeper into his resting stance and folded his arms across his chest, clearly not going anywhere until he got it. So, he said, early last spring we're out mapping the Hathor Marches, at least we think it was spring in the Hathor Marches, living like mountain goats in a place that's like the Alps with knotted up gravity. Then the mailbag comes in and I get 3 letters from Mum from 3 different months. First, that Donna dumped you and you're in a funk. Then, that you've enlisted in the DC and the family is in an uproar. Finally, that you're up on hooves. Only 5 letters do I get from you over the year. 3 of them emails to the whole family, and all of them pretty terse. None of them answers to my letters, none with a picture. I'd be wondering if you turned out half zebra or something, if Mum hadn't remarked how much you looked like me. John sighed. Okay, I should write home more, but the uproar, writing home just seemed like it would continue the uproar. Writing to me wouldn't. John stared at his brother's forehooves. You don't mind me imitating you? Do I mind you endorsing the choice I made that got the family in an uproar the first time? No. We're brothers. We're allowed to be alike. There's a guy I can compare notes with better than anyone else in the world, and I want to do that. St. Martin, are you crying? No, not. Why did you change? Ah, good. Comparing notes on the very subject of the hour. A double win. Well, everything I said before I left about wanting a good career and proving myself a good king's man and not caring about marriage, all that was true enough. But I want a little soul bearing from you, so it's only fair I bear mine some. I wanted to change myself, my personality. Ha! You should see your face. I succeeded, didn't I? John nodded. Yesterday, Dad was lamenting how you used to be easygoing and now you're not. Jeff rolled his eyes. Easygoing? I was lazy. The year before I enlisted, I realized it. Dad lined up 3 good jobs for me and I didn't pursue any of them. 2 pairs of friends got married and I realized I didn't want to make the effort to have a romance. I had to change me or drift through life. And I noticed something. There are lazy horses, sure, but there are no lazy centaurs. Whoever designed that transformation included some high octane. They wanted workhorses. So I got up on hooves. Maybe I won't be a military hero or a great explorer, but maybe I will. And by God, I won't embarrass whoever writes my epitaph. Jeff Weldon, he was no trouble. No, sir, he stamped. And maybe this Christmas I'll even be brave enough to explain that to Dad and Mum. He met John's eyes with something like a glare. There, how about you? Maybe I couldn't be bothered with a romance, but you sure could. Why'd you let Donna chase you into a vow of bachelorhood? John was silent for a few seconds, collecting the thoughts he had hammered out last night on the beach. Then, it's interesting, you talking about having to be brave. About 2 months in, Fletcher said it was time to have a talk about being bachelors and had each of us in for a chat. Jeff nodded. Elaine picks an opportune moment and surprises you with it, but it's the same idea. And this is how I was feeling about sex at the time. I told Fletcher I had noticed the geldings in our stables had no problem with bachelorhood, so maybe it would be simplest if I, too, I got halfway through voicing the idea, and he pinned my ears back. He recalled Fletcher's expression of outraged shock and noticed the similarity to Jeff's face now. Shock turned to scowl. Quite right, too. My brother the gelding is not an introduction I want to make. He broke out of his resting stance and walked very deliberately around John, surveying. When he was directly behind, John glared over his shoulder at him and whisked his tail aside to give a clear view. And did you think you were being brave by making that offer? No. He told me the brave thing to do was to live with your frustrations and disappointments, and the cavalry wanted a strong man welded to a war horse, not a eunuch. Jeff faced John again and planted himself in the resting stance, but now an arm's length away. So you bravely kept your balls. Good. Jeff ignored this. So that's how bad I felt, and I knew that I wanted nothing whatever to do with romance, ever again. Ever. Nothing. And I mean romance, not sex. I didn't figure out how to say it, how to explain it, until last night, but I felt it. Do you know about Dante and Beatrice? Jeff blinked and cocked his head. The Italian poet and the woman he loved. What? Do you know how old he was when he fell in love with this woman? 9. I'm pretty sure I was 8 when I fell in love with Donna, maybe 7. That couldn't have been real love, mature love? No, of course not, any more than it could have been erotic. But it was there. It existed. And it stayed there for at least 10 years, growing up with me. So he stopped for a moment to check his momentum. He was not going to sob in front of Jeff. Jeff, he was happy to see, was simply looking thoughtful. We always thought she was just a favorite playmate. Of course, I was only a couple of years older. Of course, what else could anyone think? And when I started treating her like a girlfriend, I bet everyone thought, he's growing up and made the great discovery. Well, not the one everyone thought. I had discovered sex, sexual attraction, but I was already in love, had been for years. Here's a big thing I realized since I transformed. Donna didn't treat me badly. I have to tell the whole family that, especially Mum, which I guess means I have to tell them all of this. Donna just thought the same as everyone else, that I was a favorite playmate, a pal, a friend, who hit his teens and started flirting. You must not have been very demonstrative. I thought I was demonstrative. Maybe she was a little dense about it. Or maybe I was too much like a brother since I hung around all through childhood. That's kind of anti-romantic. Or maybe she noticed and hoped I would just stop. I wonder what Beatrice thought of Dante. No one knows. Anyway, that's romance for me. You only get one childhood, and I had only one childhood sweetheart. I grew the romantic side of my heart around her, but it turned out she wasn't my sweetheart at all. And there was only the one shot. I was supposed to... The fairy tale was that I grew up and married my childhood sweetheart, and that's what the romance was for my heart. And it isn't happening. Trying again will only remind me of that mistake. That part of me is over. So I know everyone thinks, why doesn't he just look for another girl? But no, I don't want to be reminded how I wasted half my hope. And how could I trust my own judgment? Because you're not 8 anymore? I wasn't 8 when I proposed to Donna. I don't want anything more to do with it. What I do want... A few weeks after my little talk with Fletcher, the 3rd or 4th time I had free time in town, I went to the church and got down on all the knees I still wasn't sure of, and thanked God that Dad never took Donna on any of our family excursions. I remember wanting that so hard when I was a kid and begging for it, but it never happened. Because that's the other great love of my life, the surviving one, travel, new places, exploration. And thank God, I did thank God, it isn't at all tangled up with Donna. He sighed. So there it is, Bachelor Explorer. Hey, look at Jeff in the Cavalry. They send you exploring. You get to be big and strong and tough, and maybe you don't fit in, but that goes without saying now. Close the door on being human. Jeff took one step forward and was in his face. You follow me, you're still human, he growled. Don't you tell Mom and Dad you're not human anymore. Don't you do that to them. John felt muscles bunch to rear. That's what he said to me, he growled back. I'm the one who insisted I'm still human enough to be his son. He was happy enough to admit it. But look at us, Warhorse. Human? We never faced off like this before, not like this, wanting to kick and bite. Jeff gave a quick, fierce smile and stepped back. Maybe you remember our boyhood differently. But you're right, not just human. You'd better tell me what Dad said about being human and being his son. John repeated the conversation in the garage and dining room. I hope Peter doesn't want to change, he sighed. Jeff grunted satisfaction. Good, you're not trying to ditch them. Would I have come home if I were? Jeff shrugged. Maybe, at a direct order from Mom or Dad, or Fletcher. But you came freely. John nodded. But I'm not sure me being here is making them happy. They'd be more unhappy if you stayed away, much more. But stay away or come home, I make them unhappy, a lot or a little. Jeff sighed impatiently, a perfect reproduction of their father's exasperated sigh. Yep, just like me. Let's get on home. He wheeled around John and headed down the path. John followed. The tale's not done, Jeff went on. It's not a happy ending or an unhappy ending, because we're not at the ending yet. That's like what Fletcher said, John remarked. When he was done pinning my ears back, I asked if taking the Sagitta was a mistake. He said it was too soon to tell. It depended on what I did with it. Yeah, well, I was quoting Elaine just now. I once asked him the same thing. He also said that a good way of cheering them up was to show them we were happy and successful. Sounds self-serving. Again, they'd be more unhappy to see us fail. There's no neat separation of interests when people love each other. There, I said it. Don't make me talk sentimental again. It doesn't go with the new personality. From behind, John couldn't see his brother's face, but thought Jeff sounded tight. But showing them your success means staying in touch, writing home and stuff. Yes, right, point taken. Again. Jeff glanced back at him, then slowed so they trotted side by side. We still owe them those happy endings, as much as mortals can deliver, he said. We'll have to come up with new ones. Dad really wanted me to follow his path, and Mom really wanted a fairy tale romance for you. He gave John another glance. She's not going to get it now. I hope not, John said. Not to be mean to Mom, but I just explained... Jeff looked at his brother again, and John realized he was studying his ear. He flushed. Has Mom noticed your new hairy ears? Jeff asked. Not that she's said. Well, it doesn't show much, that fawn buckskin color. And it's only on the backs. Has she seen your mane? I suppose. She saw me change out of the glamour shirt when I first got here. Don't tell her what it means. Here. Jeff took John's elbow and stopped them both, then peered into his brother's eyes. I'm not sure your pupils are oval at all. Good, that might freak her out. Okay, yes, I'm kind of shoveling, extra horsey. I certainly won't point that out to Mom. What brought this up? You haven't heard about this? You will when you start your training with more senior cavalry or go on expeditions. It's just scuttlebutt, as far as I know. But the idea is that the horsier you are in appearance, the horsier you are in character, too. John tried to do an instant inventory of his personality and, as before, was unsure which changes were in character and which in circumstance. And if it's true, then Mum's not likely to see you in any kind of romance in the future because stallions aren't monogamous. I'm already a sworn bachelor. He started them down the path again. Right, but that doesn't mean you need have nothing to do with women. Fletcher did talk about the rules for flirting, John said, and was unsettled to hear a wistful note in his own voice. Against that, he asked in tones of mock accusation, So are you saying I'll never fall in love again because I have hairy ears? Jeff snorted humanly. Well, they won't do much to attract girls. Though there's always trimming them, and I know one guy who points his with mustache wax. But yeah, softly, looking away, especially if you don't want to. But, he continued normally, there's liking and friendships and what your Fletcher genteelly calls flirting. I think Elaine gives a more thorough education there. John was silent. He could not decide how he felt about Jeff's one-horse prophecy. On the one hand, the limb would never grow back to give you pain. On the other hand, you were an amputee. But he put that metaphor resolutely away and thought, not for the first time, of priests and monks and nuns who did as much as he had with no magical assistance and for generally nobler motives. And there were those simply not interested, and all the societies for which romance was just not a topic. This is what we go on with. "Where'd you hear about Dante and Beatrice?" Jeff asked, probably just to end the silence. "From Charlie Horse." "Who's Charlie Horse?" "Charles Darnley, a guy in my class. We all have nicknames." "What's yours?" "Buckjack." "You don't sound like you like it much." "I don't." "Why? It's strong and peppy, no meanness to it. Was it given to aggravate you?" "No, the guy nicknamed all of us. Didn't mind when he got nicknamed back. He's Mr. Paint, or Style." "Well, then, be Buckjack. New body, new face," Jeff scrubbed his own beard in illustration. "New voice," deliberately pitching down to make his horse lungs resonate. "New name. You wanted a fresh start, didn't you?" "Hey, my nickname is Cremo, creamy. They don't use it much, for which I'm grateful. I'd love to be Buckjack." And now we go on. Buckjack grinned. "Okay, I'll be Buckjack, you be Buckjeff. Tell him your kid brother gave you the name." Buckjeff laughed. "The Weldon Buckskins." Their trot geared up to a canter. They would be home in a minute or two. We go on. "We need," said Buckjack, "to start some new Christmas customs." Buckjeff did not need to ask why. "There's giving rides," he said. "That's good. I've already promised some, and Lucy and Val won't give us much rest, but how about sleigh rides?" "Where would we get a sleigh?" "That's Dad's problem. What's the use of having a trader in the family if he can't acquire things? It could be an old one. We have some time to fix it up if need be. And then—" "Brazen it out," said Buckjack, catching fire. "Tow the family up and down Oakwood and anyone else who wants. The charm campaign. And we don't even need to stay on Oakwood. You can put on your glamour bandana. I'll use my t-shirt, maybe have Axel ride me so he looks symmetrical. We can tour Stirk if we want." "Sounds like work," Buckjeff commented. "Do you tire easily, Warhorse?" "No more than you, little brother." "You know, I think I came out an inch or so taller." They were still chattering as they entered the backyard at a trot. "No reins," declared Buckjeff. "Course not. You brought your dress jacket?" "Oh yeah, and hat and saddle blanket, the whole kit." "Good," said Buckjack. "I have a saddle too. You?" "Course. Oh, and trim your beard to match mine, the matched pair theme." I like it full. Hell, it'll grow back in a week. If people are going to go confusing us, we might as well help them." "Okay." Their parents came out the kitchen door. There was relief in their smiles, but Buckjack realized people naturally smile, seeing their kids happy. "Come on, girl, use your knees. I don't feel any contact." Chloe obediently squeezed Buckjack's barrel as tightly as she could. "What's the next one up?" "Canter. Want to try it?" "Go for it." Buckjack felt her take firmer hold of the straps on his jacket as he upped his gait. It was the first time he had carried her. Just ahead, where Chloe could keep a maternal eye on them, Lucy and Val were riding Buckjeff. At a canter, they would soon pass the kids, though. Except that his brother heard the rising gait and accelerated to match. The children shrieked their excitement. A few pedestrians scattered, others cheered. It was early evening again. Windows and lampposts blazed with colored lights. The whole street smelled of baking as residents got soul cakes ready for the good neighbors. A group of people, mortals, was gathered in front of the driftwood preparing for wassailing, and others in front of Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer for caroling. This would go on every evening until Christmas itself. The Fays were already at it. "A soul cake, please St. Alice, a soul cake. Oats and milk and a bit of leaven, anything to see a soul to heaven. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him who made us all." They moved up and down the street in variegated groups, little figures like the lady of the squirrel cloak who had greeted him yesterday, things like miniature scarecrows, translucent human-looking folk in clothes from the 1920s, ravens wearing garlands and singing as well as you'd expect, 3 foxes and 2 badgers. Was anyone left in Oakwood? Buckjack almost felt inconspicuous. Knees! Right, she renewed her squeeze. Your ears are furry. Yep. Jeff's aren't. His loss. And he doesn't have that stripe down his neck. Mane, short one, but a mane. I'm horsier than thou. Well, clearly I'm horsier than thou, but I'm horsier than Jeff, too. A bit. Why? Buckjack shrugged. Seems to be random. Don't point it out to Mum. Right, she might cry again. I'm sorry, she interrupted him with a hug, but now she understands. That's good. I think she understands better than any of the rest of us. You two are the family romantics. I'm not saying she approves your choice. Frankly, I'm not sure I do either. But at least you make some kind of sense to us now. I think Dad understands Jeff's reasons the best of us. I think he's actually proud of him now. He's proud of you too. I think he now hopes to be proud of me someday. But that's okay. He will be. I'll see to it. I've got my vocation. A vocation to explore. He'll like that. She hugged him again. Just have a vocation to come home, too. Absolutely. Got to have someone to tell the traveler's tales to. Knees. Knees yourself. I never claimed to be a horsewoman. Just as well. Hang on. They had reached the bend. Gil Faber stood sentinel there, watching wide-eyed as Buckjeff wheeled and headed back down Oakwood. Buckjack followed, giving Faber a grin and snapping a salute as he turned. Peter next? Asked Chloe. I'd better, or he'll explode. Oh, hi! He waved to Charlotte, Robert, and Andy as he cantered past. Better work them in, too, I promised. And Mum. I can't believe Mum asked for a ride. Me either, but won't you be a rag by the end of the night? From you lot, you're the ones who'll be feeling it because I can tell you're not used to gripping with your knees. This is just a warm-up for a riding class. Boasting, are we? I am showing off. Epilogue. Upham Wood lay in the night of a January freeze. 8 soldiers of the dedicated cavalry and 12 of the standard cavalry, out on a wilderness survival exercise, were huddled around a fire, spending their brief downtime in passing phones around, looking at holiday pictures. That's quite a sleigh, Mr. Weldon. It's a disgrace, sir, but thank you. We had fun with it. We'll do better next year, or whenever we can next get home for Christmas. And this is Christmas dinner? Yes, sir. Where's the rest of you? Under my niece and nephew, sir, and that's my younger brother Peter on Buckjeff, my older brother Jeff. We have a whole new career as seating, it seems, sir. Buckjeff. He admired Carlin's work, sir. And here's the whole family in front of the house. The kids are still on our backs, as you see. A little posed, but it has everyone in it, and I think I'll get it enlarged and framed. The smiles don't look posed. That's true, sir. And we'll continue with Christmas Tales of the Cavalry next time.